What the is going on?
I genuinely did not know what to do. It was like the worst 12 hours of my entire life. Am I gonna have to send an email that says that it's done and we're never doing it again because this is a disaster?
What's the moment when you're just like, I'm gonna pull out or double down?
We cut like $300,000 of expenses.
How much did it cost this year?
My guess is like $2 million. If you have weeks to plan something, you can figure it out. But when you have like 2 days, you just have to burn money.
People want to know, why are you doing this?
It's like the greatest science fair in the entire world.
Do you still enjoy making stuff on that first channel?
Less than I used to, yeah.
Are you happy?
I think so.
I'm here today with top creator and engineer William Osman at his event, Open Sauce. Open Sauce is the world's coolest science fair with inventions like a meatball vending machine, a self-sketching Etch-a-Sketch, and 3D printed chocolate. William spent over 7 figures working with hundreds of people to make this and succeeded. Over 20,000 people came, including other creator guests like Mark Rober, Niall Red, and Ludwig. Today, William shares why Open Sauce is his life's work, even though it's not yet profitable, and his journey from engineer to creator to entrepreneur. This pod is sponsored by me. We're building something really cool. The first business banking service tailored for creators, where we make it easy for you to track your finances, earn more in interest, and get other cool perks that help you out. Join the waitlist via link below, and more on this later. 3, 2, 1.
Synced.
Perfect.
That was a nice snap.
Is this day 2, day 3 of Open Sauce?
So this is a teardown day. We're watching it being torn down right now from up above the arena.
How does it feel?
I'm immensely relieved. You can hear my voice is like...
Yeah, your voice is scratchy right now.
Yeah, it works. It's scratchy. Last year, I think my voice was like completely gone though.
Yeah.
But this year, it's like I was able to, it's like, you know, I can still hang on a little bit.
I mean, I mentioned day 2, day 3. This is really like day 365. Like this was, as soon as the last Open Sauce ended, you began to plan out this one, yeah?
Yeah. Man, when we came into to Open Sauce, like as an idea, we were thinking, I mean, it won't be easy, but like, it won't be, how hard could it be?
How hard could it be? I feel like that's the infamous words every engineer.
It literally, it gets harder. Like the closer you get to the date of the event, the harder it gets and the faster it becomes. And so it accelerates into like this absolute insanity of problem solving and putting out fires and trying to figure out which problem is more important to solve.
What's been the most unexpected problem that you've now learned to deal with?
An immense scale. It's a ton of people's. I mean, it's literally thousands of people's or tens of thousands of people's time. You know, you put a lot of trust into people that you pay money to, and they have responsibilities and they don't do it. And you do all this work. It makes me feel like a little bit like a bridezilla.
Because you're putting together a wedding.
And then someone else comes in.
Of science.
Yeah.
And then someone's just f***ing it up.
It's like the scale of it is horrific too. I mean, it would have been like, I don't think it would have been the end of my career, but like it would have been bad. You know, there's all the Fyre Festival jokes and stuff, but like it wouldn't have been Fyre Festival. It would have been just like, sorry, nobody can come in.
Do you feel you have empathy for the Fyre Festival founder?
I do.
Now?
I 100% do. Like, I think that, you know, they maybe definitely 100% bit off way more than they could chew, and they did not have the right people and they didn't know what they were doing. And I think that we don't necessarily know what we're doing, but we do now. When we started, we have advisors, right? So like I would say, we don't know what we're doing, and we know that we don't know what we're doing. So what we do is we go seek out people that do know what they're doing.
And now you've taken over the space for over 20,000 attendees, the world's greatest fucking science fair. How many exhibitors?
It's like right smack dab between 400 and 500.
This reminds me of the World's Fairs that the United States used to host, where every country gets to come off and show off things. Like 1876 was the first one. That's when bananas were introduced to America. That's so when Alexander Graham Bell showed off the telephone. You're holding your own World's Fair, except you're showing off meatball vending machines.
Yeah, exactly.
And shrimp frying devices.
Yeah. The thing that's sort of most bizarre to me, because going into this, you know, there's like inspirations of events I used to go to, like obviously VidCon and Maker Faire, and they're not as good as they used to be. It's very corporate. It's very like, they don't understand why people like it. I know like Maker Faire is a little bit less corporate, but I think even then, like this kind of their whole faculty is like, you know, as they aging, they're maybe not in it anymore, and they don't really understand what people are into nowadays. They don't really understand the internet super well, and it kind of made me sad not having that event that was just, you know, the community that I've wanted to be a part of since I was like 15 years old, because I love Maker Faire. Like that was sort of like a yearly thing that we'd rent an Airbnb, you know, like 8 of us would come up. Like I remember one year we had, you know, a tiny little house in San Mateo, and it was like me, iDubbbz, Michael Reeves, my cameraman John, Peter Streeple, his cameraman. I think that was it. And we're like in this, you know, tiny little house, and like we're hanging out, and like Mark Rober shows up for a couple hours. It was like 2018. You know, it was like opportunity for a bunch of people who are into all this weird stuff to just hang out. And then you go to the event for a few hours and do whatever. And then you hang around and get dinner and then go back to your Airbnb and like mess around. And, it's like, I miss that a lot. And I'm like, why did all this stuff die? Like, why is it not that anymore?
Your eyes lit up when you're describing you in 2018 hanging around this maker fair versus when you were talking about putting in their open sauce, you were like, oh yeah, I am dying.
It makes me a little sad because to make that, like, it's a handful of people have to suffer, and I'm one of them. And so it's like when we have a problem, like a bad problem, and we're like, we need to be on it. Like, number one, it made me realize like that's super what lawyers are for. When you're dealing with stuff that's big and important, you can't risk it. It's scary. It's like, we employ people. This is like their job. They have health insurance.
How many people were helping open sauce this year?
Like at the event, like I don't even know. It's like, it's over 100. It's like 100 or 200. It's insane. Yeah.
How many people attended this year?
I don't know, but I think the total event attendance is like north of like 20,000 if I had to ballpark. Yeah.
That's like literally the size of a town. And we're here in Cow Palace, which like basketball sports teams play in here. It's like 250,000 acres.
Monster truck rallies in the arena that we're looking over right now. Yeah.
So ever since you were 15, you want to find this community of like-minded hackers and engineers. You get to do this with Maker Faire. There's a big jump from, gosh, I miss the good old days of Maker Faire to, dude, you were hosting together a 20,000 person event.
Yeah. Yeah.
What takes you over from I miss this to this is now my life's focus?
I mean, I have to do it. The first year was like what's the quote? We don't do this because it's easy. We do it because we thought it would be easy.
So you thought it'd be easier than it was.
Yeah, we thought we could do the whole thing originally. Like, I would say it's very naive. We're like, we could do this for like $300,000. And then the first year, it's like, oh. We get into it and it's like you start adding stuff up and you're like, oh, like just renting a building is like $150,000.
Okay.
Like, okay, well, wait, that's like half the money. And you're just like, no, it's like, that's it. Like it's Bay Area, right? So like, big companies will come in and just like throw a party for a weekend and they'll just like pay an absurd amount of money. And I'm like, well, like we don't have an absurd amount of money. It's basically just, it's like some family and friends and a couple other YouTubers and then I have to, fill the rest of the gap.
So you funded a lot of it with just your own money?
Yeah, like about half of it, yeah. Oh, no, It's bad. It's like, it's actually like when I make jokes about I put all my money to it, it's not a joke. It's like actually, like, I don't know if it's the dumbest thing I've ever done. I don't know how irresponsible it is. I'm pretty sure if I had a financial planner, they would say, what the fuck are you doing?
I got a call from your COO and like 2 days ago being like, American Express froze your credit card. Yeah. And he was just like, hey, can you increase the Karat card limit by this much?
Yep. I was so mad at them. I was like, what do you need me to do right now? Like,
wait, what happened with them?
I have no idea.
So Amex was just like, you just can't spend any more on your
I was like, what if I pay the entire card off? And they're like, no, sorry. Like, it's going to take a week and they have to do a whole thing. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, but I like, fuck you. Yeah.
Did the event last year make money? Hey there, thanks for watching the podcast. If you're a creator, making stuff is really hard. And it's even harder to be creative when you have to deal with money and finances. That's why I'm helping build the first business banking service specifically for creators. We make it easy for you to incorporate, officially become a business, get a business bank account to protect your savings, even potentially earn more in interest and get cool perks that help you out. If you want to learn more, join the waitlist via link below. Thanks so much. Now back to the podcast. Did the event last year make money?
No, it didn't make money this year either. I mean, that's, I've learned a lot about how, like a startup works. Is that like, oh my God, you have to like spend money, I guess, right? Like you don't just like make a product and make money immediately. Like you make a product and then you have to, build the audience, you have to build the consumers and then, maybe several years in the future. And so I think that anybody that does it with their own money is like absolutely insane because it's way higher risk. If you're making a thing and then selling it, like it makes a little bit more sense. But having to do like a multi-year plan is like, holy shit. Cause then you're like, we're in the whole multiple years in a row. And the job now is like make it as good as possible.
Yeah.
And then go find people that will invest. And so now there's other YouTubers and other couple companies that we were talking to before that were maybe a little bit less interested that are like, oh shit, like, okay.
Yeah, it's blowing up. Last year was like 5,000 attendees. This year is 20,000 attendees. So you're showing the growth. Yep. You're putting your own sweat, equity, sanity, and money.
Yes.
How much did it cost this year?
My guess is like $2 million.
Where does that all go? Is it mostly just like the building, the unions?
That's a great question. I would love to know. It goes into like, I think the most expensive part. So the creators are super expensive. like super expensive. The exhibit halls are super expensive. Like the building is like expensive, but all the infrastructure to go into the building, like the main stage, the union labor, the food, like, and honestly, like talking to some people, this event should, it should cost like 4 times more probably.
So you're already being super scrappy.
Super scrappy. Like a lot, I see a lot of criticisms of other YouTube events where it's like, well, how do they not make money? Like the tickets are so expensive. Like,
Yeah.
It's like people have no idea. There's like a wedding tax, then there's an event tax. And the event tax is like, it's insane. Like nothing costs less than $10,000.
Ludwig's openly talked. He doesn't made money from his events either. And his are like one day pop-up type things. This is like you were filling a stadium.
No, it's actually batshit crazy. Like we thought we could do it for $300,000. And you get into it and you realize like, oh my God, like we have to set money aside like at the end because we know during the last like couple of days, people are going to be like, oh no, like this is like money you have to spend. Like if you have weeks to plan something, you can kind of figure it out. But when you have like 2 days, you just have to burn money.
You think it's gonna be $300,000. You realizing it's gonna be way more. What's the moment when you're just like, I'm gonna fucking pull out or double down?
We had one of those this year, yeah. Like a couple weeks before the event, I think I was not sleeping at all. It was like this nightmare because you don't know, you're crashing a plane basically, and you have to crash it as gently as possible. Like you don't know how many tickets you're gonna sell. You don't know, like you don't know anything. And so it's like if you don't know your ticket count, how are you supposed to know how many attendees are there?
How can you even sell sponsors?
It's not lying, but like you're basically lying. You're saying like this is what's going to happen, and the only thing you have to base it off is last year and the scale of this year. We had more sponsors this year. We had more space this year. We already had 1 year under our belts. I'm like, of course we're going to sell more tickets, but like I have no idea how many. And so you're just like flying this plane into the runway. You're like, you don't have landing gear, and you're like, well, I'm just going to try to land, I guess, and see what happens. Yeah. And you can't stop. And so the only thing is like, there was a conversation at one point where it's like, what do we do? Do we just start cutting things? I mean, we had a conversation where we basically went through and like, we cut like, I think, like $300,000 of expenses, where it was like, we just don't, like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, we don't need this shit.
For me, the most terrifying thing, also doing company and having done events on a much smaller scale, this will either be really cool or a really visible failure.
Yeah. Dude, that's my nightmare. That's like honestly probably why the event is as good as it is because there's this like innate fear from like a handful of people that really like it would be very bad if it fell apart.
And it's this like weird thing because once you've agreed to invest and promote it more in the back of your head, or at least in the back of my head, I'm like, this is also making the potential failure bigger, which now motivates me even more to make it work. The more I talk about it, you've been through an entire mental journey.
It's like honestly a little traumatizing.
How did you get to this from 2 years ago? You put out a YouTube video where you're like, I'm quitting YouTube.
Yeah.
And a couple of years later, you're hosting a 20,000 plus
doing something worse
with creators and YouTubers. It's like, you're like, oh man, like YouTube's really hard. Let me do this instead.
Yeah. Yes. I have no idea. I think that it's always been kind of this idea to do an event, and it's like the science box, like Crunch Labs, every engineering channel is like, yeah, what if we did like a science kit? What if we did this? And I think for me it was like, what if like an event, like a science event, like we could totally do a science event, like that'd be awesome. There's like a little bit more, but it was just kind of an impulsive thing. And then I was telling everybody about it, like Alan, Kevin, Nigel. I'm like I want to do this thing. Like, can you guys each give me like a little bit of money, and then we'll start this thing. And Nigel was like, it doesn't really sound like that interesting. Like, I don't think I'd want to go. And I was like, fuck you, Nigel. And then that was like this like spite to like just keep going.
Just to prove to him, as much as everything getting worse and worse, you're like, fuck you, Nigel.
Yeah, I was mad at him. I was like, Nigel, that's fucked up.
Especially because you're just like laying out this vision, this idea. It's like a baby. It's in its infancy. And then Nigel's coming around just like kicking it in the nuts.
Like, what do you mean it's not going to be good? He thinks it's good now. So.
I'm glad he's come around. I think the only person, this goes to your earlier point where like the suffering has to be concentrated on a small number of people so that everyone gets the benefit. I think it had to be you because you still hold on to that childlike wonder and fascination around just, wouldn't this be fucking cool? You're not even thinking through all the details. No. You're just like, hey, I loved going to Maker Faire. I love making cool stuff. Yeah. Let's give the people a place to do it. Yeah. Combining that with, well, you've got a lot of followers.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of friends
with followers
who have followers who theoretically could put this together.
Yeah.
I feel it's like the combination of those two, nobody else really has.
Yeah. No, there is literally no other event
Yeah.
There's no other event. Nobody does it like this. Like, it's actually like, you could come here and not know who a single one of the YouTubers are and have a great time. You could come here and not give a shit about any of the exhibits and have a great time. And if you like both of those things, you're gonna have the best fucking weekend of your entire life. Like, actually, I mean, it's a very weird, because for me, it's like what I wanted was the sort of YouTube summer camp, and I wanted the exhibit hall to like talk to people and see their cool shit. And so it kind of just like naturally turned into this like perfect product of YouTubers coming, and people see that and they're like, well, I want to meet these YouTubers. And so that's kind of what they feel the event is. But then the vibe of the event and what they kind of maybe take home and remember, like the feeling of it was all the crazy shit that the exhibitors brought. There's like the YouTube side is basically like more the marketing and the idea side. And then the exhibits kind of more like the vibe and the feeling side. And so you kind of, it's like a 1-2 combo. It's like you can use the creators to help draw people in to something that they're really going to love. But they might not necessarily show up for the thing that they're really going to love, because they don't know that they're really going to love it. Unless they know what it is, which they won't really know what it is until they go. Like, it's hard to tell people about the event. It's hard to say like, this is what it is, because people are just like, oh, it just sounds kind of like, it sounds like bizarre, like kind of insane.
Yeah, is this like a YouTuber thing? Is this
Exactly.
like a science fair?
Right.
Is this like VidCon but specialized?
Right. And it's like, it's all those things. It's literally everything. It's like everything you could, it's like the greatest science fair in the entire world. Because it's not just like, here's the thing I did and I'm going to explain why I did it. It's just a bunch of fucking morons who should never have built half the shit they built. And like, that's what I do.
To me, that actually reconciles really nicely with, hey, a little while ago you were thinking about quitting YouTube and then you went into this. To me, like, this is why you have these followers. You said you can use the creators to help bring in people to something they're going to enjoy, but they might not otherwise know.
Yeah.
I think every creator, we all reach a point where it's like, at some point you're like, oh, numbers go burr. Like,
I know. Yeah.
more subscribers.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
But why am I doing this?
Yeah.
This is why.
Yes. This is what I want.
Yeah.
Like, that's why we did it. It's like, I literally made a product for me. And then it turns out that like a lot of other people, like, there's no such thing as like, I think this is a good idea and people will like this. It's like,
Yeah.
I want this and I'm pretty sure other people want it.
Yeah.
It's like, it literally is just, what is a problem I have?
It's funny because like that is your channel now. So many of the videos, they still have some cool thing you're making, but it's
Yeah.
around the narrative of your life, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you know, for the past 3-4 years, it was like William's building cool shit. And I remember after your X-ray, where you designed your own X-ray machine,
Yeah.
right? People were like, oh, like this isn't right. And you're like, okay, I'm going to go expose one of the commenters, hunt him
Right,
down,
right,
show he
yeah,
doesn't know what he's
yeah.
doing. Like this is now
I
becoming
know.
involved in your personal saga too.
Yeah.
There was a little while ago where you were just like, kind of like, yeah, like guys, like I don't want to do YouTube anymore.
Yeah.
Especially to a lot of it was focused on viewers and commenters coming in and just shitting all over some of what you do. What brought you back? And you came back too with a MrBeast collab, which is crazy.
That was horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, because
It was insane.
if I remember, your task was what? It was like put together 1,000 explosive devices.
Was it 400 and how many people are in Squid Game?
I don't know, but hundreds of little explosive devices that are supposed to go off. And I remember, I think you said like it didn't work.
God, it was such a nightmare. They were built out of McDonald's straws. I basically told them, they said, Michael, we're doing Squid Game. We need like 400 something squibs. And Michael was like, you should talk to William.
Michael was like, hell no, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. Cause Michael's good. He's good at a lot of stuff, but like when it comes to something like that, like that's something that I'm really good at.
Yeah.
He's like organizing and making it happen. Michael's kind of like a sit in a closet and write a piece of software for a couple
Yeah,
of
Michael's
months.
more programming.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see like a lot of the stuff that he kind of does in his videos is things that he's kind of learned from me with you can like the tasers and stuff. It's like the same taser. Like that's the taser. Like I should,
So they come to you and like at this point, you haven't been on YouTube. You haven't been making videos for months. What's going through your mind when MrBeast says, do this with me?
I was like, that sounds interesting. Sounds cool. I think I could do it. And I told him, I was like, I'm going to need, it's going to be like $100,000 and I'm not going to promise you anything.
Nice.
And then they hired another company to do kind of a similar. So there's like an A team and a B team. The A team was doing like a mobile interface where it was like an iPhone strapped to everybody's arm, easy accelerometer. It was like sending data to try to like track everything. That whole thing didn't fucking work at all. And they spent a ton of money on it. And so us having this like super scrappy 3-week turnaround PCB nightmare from hell and having a mobile app ended up basically taking over the entire Squid Game system for them.
And this was literally like the thing is supposed to explode when they're out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it basically what we did is we built a circuit board that had a like the cheapest wireless microprocessor module you can buy, and like a transistor, like basically a MOSFET, a couple resistors, some LEDs. And then the software was written by a Tesla engineer and an Apple engineer that I'm friends with that played hooky from work. They didn't even take time off work. They literally just like were working remote. We like, it's low level Wi-Fi. So it uses Wi-Fi, but it's not Wi-Fi. It's like really shitty Wi-Fi. And so every single board receives the same signal. So they all receive the same packet data, and the packet data is essentially the state of every single squib.
Yeah.
And so they all get it, and it gets sent out like 100 times a second. And so you're guaranteed to at least get a couple every second. And then, instead of detecting automatically, which is what the original thing that they paid a freaking obscene amount of money to build, it didn't even work. Because the iPhones were like getting phone calls and stuff that people were, because they rented them, and it was a disaster. And so we took those iPhones and we reprogrammed them with our app, which had a button interface. So you like would choose the number to explode, and then there was 100 people on the sides of the arena in the pink kind of like boss outfits that were just looking and seeing like who moved, and then looking at their number, and then just like hitting the button on the app, and then it would go to the central server, and then that would get broadcast over the network. So every board would receive it. The one board would be like, oh, my number got called,
I should pop it.
I should pop. And then it would light a rocket motor igniter.
Yeah.
And the rocket motor igniter would then light a piece of black powder fuse. And then there was a McDonald's straw that everything was shoved into with like a tiny hole poked in it that was underneath a bag of ink that was rubber banded to the circuit board. So it would pop, it would like burn a hole through the plastic of the bag. And then the rubber band would squeeze and
it'd go off.
And so it would squeeze the ink out, and then it would like seep out into the.
Why are you using McDonald's straws?
Because like it was like, the day before, and we needed to make this little charge.
You were again, open source vibes. You were literally making this happen like right before.
Yes. And now Red went to McDonald's and asked for an entire box of straws, and like I just gave it to him.
And this is like crazy multi-million-dollar MrBeast production.
Yeah.
That's now a cultural touchstone. It was dependent on Nile Red going to fucking McDonald's and getting free straws.
Yes. Yeah. They straight up gave him a whole unopened box of straws, and he didn't even say what was going on. He just asked for it, and they're like, okay.
That's McDonald's.
No, it's insane. And it's like, it's totally the vibe of like that maker community of just, we're just doing this thing. And, I mean, we literally spent all that money too that he gave us. Like when you do stuff that fast, like the circuit boards were like, I don't even know, like $30,000, because it was like 3-day turn. And then the assembly house that, ended up actually apparently like really, they're doing very well now because of that video.
That's ironic.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah.
So, like they went from like 3 Google reviews to like over like 1,000 5-star Google reviews.
So you helped make them.
Yeah, they are. I actually am surprised because they keep telling me like, we owe you so much, and we owe you so much. How much money do you guys make? I'm like, how well is the company doing? Like that's what happened. Like my stupid fucking MrBeast Squid Game video like made this family business like actually explode.
Pretty cool.
Which is like amazing to hear. And they're here at Open Sauce. They're like, yeah, like we'll get a booth. Like, well, we want to do all this stuff. We want to help, give back. Like, I feel like we owe you so much. And I was like, I mean, you don't owe me anything. You saved my ass when we did that.
How did you feel after Beast?
I felt good. I felt horrible, but I felt like, it was weird because like money to me has always been, like this thing that you have in your pocket to like pay your rent and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it made me realize like, oh my God, like money is like a tool. Like you can basically buy people's time with money. And so if you have an idea and you want to do it, you can say like, here's money, help me do it. And then instead of having to learn things that you shouldn't have to learn, it just works. And you can get things done super quickly. We needed the rocket motor igniters that I had bought in advance. I like shipped them to North Carolina, and they got lost in the mail. And so we needed them. And it was the night before or 2 nights before. And so we like just called around, and we're trying to figure out like who has these.
With the power of money, MrBeast budget.
Yes. And so they found this old man like in New Jersey, like 6 hours away. And he was like, well, yeah, I'll sell them to you for $1,000 or something. But you got to be here before 8. And it was like, because he's like, I go to bed. And I'm like, it's like, okay, how much would it cost you to stay up till 9? And he was like, I don't know. And like, could we pay you $3,000? And he was like, okay. And then somebody drove across state lines to like grab this box of rocket motor igniters, and then drove back. So it's like, you just like do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, it's like this weird thing. You're now realizing, hey, scrappy hacker, make everything. The power of money. I can pay other people. Almost like what you're putting together now. This is like a big level production of the type that MrBeast would do, funnily enough. Although I feel like you're doing it for very different reasons than why he would do it.
Yes, I think that this probably technically is bigger than any MrBeast video, and then we've definitely done it for way less money than any MrBeast video.
You've put in more work for negative dollars.
For negative dollars, yeah.
Because of the passion.
Yes. And we keep going because one day I pray to God that it at least pays for itself and then pays me back. Yeah.
Why did you quit making videos in the first place?
I think there was a point where I was just kind of, I mean, it's like people have like periods of feeling less good and depending on what's going on. And I think there was this point where I just was like not really sure what I was doing. And there were a couple of videos that they're fine videos, but I felt like I didn't know how to explain why I was doing stuff. Like I felt like I owed this explanation to the audience. It's like, I'm doing this thing and it's really stupid, but I have to like super justify it.
Which videos were this?
There's one where I cut my hair with this like bomb disposal robot at my old job. And I remember like just like trying to come up with an intro, and I was like, I don't know.
Like, why am I doing this?
Why am I doing this? Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, it doesn't matter why I'm doing it, but I remember being so frustrated. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, why am I feeling like I have to like very aggressively explain what I'm doing and justifying it to people?
Yeah.
And like that sort of was an extreme frustration because it kind of takes away from the entire point of building stupid things. Of like, I'm doing it just to do it. But the meta on YouTube felt very like, oh, you've got to have motivation. You've got to have real motivation.
A reason.
Right. And if you don't, then people don't get on board as quickly or easily. Like there's the video that has done surprisingly well is the carpet that electrifies my roommate when he walks too loud.
Yeah, this is Michael.
And it was a real problem because he'd walk around in circles while he was making his videos in the middle of the night. He would be in the living room going in circles and he would just hear the stairs like creaking, like, and you're like, dude, you like, gotta stop walking around the living room. And so that's where the idea came from. And so the motivation is like, it's a good story.
And so you're like, oh, I'm cutting my hair with bomb disposal robot. It's just like, oh, I'm quirky.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
hard.
And so like that's the meta change. Like there is a frustration of like, why are you doing this? And like that's kind of open source is like there's a community of people that don't care. Yeah, they don't care. But on YouTube, if you're reaching a more generic audience, like they do care.
Everyone cares, yeah.
There's like only one video I've ever done that like I can explain to my grandparents, and it's the fucking raccoon video.
Yeah, you adopted a raccoon, which funnily was before you knew you were going to have your daughter, Potato.
The raccoon showed up actually the day that I found out that Chelsea was pregnant. Yeah,
it feels like some shaman druid shit.
I was like that whole video. I'm just like in the back of my mind. I'm just like,
you're like, oh, this is cute, but like we have an actual baby coming.
Like, oh god, this is horrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good video.
Yeah, because it's like a story. It's more of a narrative of like, what is my problem? What am I trying to figure out? What is like my conclusion at the end? Like we did the whole like Dan Harmon story circle for it to try to like build the narrative.
You know what's so funny? I went to your website, williamosman.com.
It's just a shitty blog, yeah.
You have a project list of ideas you want to build out for your YouTube channel from 2018?
Yes, yeah.
Along with other top favorites like Clothes for Cats and Dogs, Knife Cannon, Mechanical T-Rex Head.
Yeah.
And a self-inflating lightsaber.
One of them that I think of all the time is like a banana peeling machine is on there too.
What?
It's like, what is that even? Like, how funny it would be to like stick a banana in a hole and then it comes out.
But when I looked through your list, which by the way, I did not see banana peel remover on it. Sure? Sadly, I'm pretty sure. Again, I saw a lot of things on there.
I swear to God, that's on there. Or maybe it's just living in my head rent free.
The main thing I thought, like going through the list, I was like, this feels like some like crazy kids science fair project list of just like, oh, would it be cool if I built this?
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas in there that like I don't think would ever do now. YouTube meta has kind of changed, which makes me like a little bit sad.
So your main channel, when did you start to like, did you let that begin to influence you?
I think seeing Michael's videos do so well and like trying to figure out like what is going on? Like how are his videos doing so well? And
he's only made like 10 videos, by the way.
Yeah, he's like doesn't make videos. It's funny, you go look at his video history and you're like, oh my God, like that, like one line below the current one, we like lived in the same house, like years ago.
Yeah.
And then you kind of start thinking, which I think is important. I think it's very important to like think about how you do stuff. It's also like maybe a bit of a procrastination thing.
Yeah.
Where you're trying to figure out like, well, how do I make the video? And it's like, and the second channel is like, just get out there and do something dumb. But the main channel, you're kind of like thinking a little bit harder about it, trying to figure out, well, how do I make sure that it does well so that I can, continue to get, good sponsors and whatnot.
Right. This is where it's like basically become a business in its own right. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause then, there's people that depend on me too. Like there's probably, off the top of my head, like 1, 2, 3, like there's like probably five or six people.
So you have employees now?
Yeah, there's employees.
On Team William Osman's channel?
Like I have an editor full time. I have my, kind of right-hand man, Ian Doki, who's like the executive producer of Open Sauce. I have two people that run Cat Warehouse, the merch thing that we do. And so for me, it's like kind of terrifying where I'm like, oh my God, like I have to make it work, like I have to do stuff. And so then you kind of think it becomes a little bit more like, you have to think about your decisions that you make. And so the second channel, like I said, has been like liberating because it doesn't matter, right? It's like, who cares? But the main channel, it's like, I got to make sure that like the video does well, that it gets, good views. And
do you still enjoy making stuff on that first channel?
Less than I used to, yeah.
I get that,
And I think about it a lot because I'm like I like building stuff and I like making stuff, but there's this like pressure of having to appease people. Because like back in the day, you could do something really dumb. You still can kind of do it, but it feels more risky, and people will watch it. And now it's like there's so much competition. There's so many channels that are, I think, kind of like, MrBeast is doing like 100 like greatest science experiments kind of thing.
Who are the biggest creators you're trying to learn from?
I think Ryan Tran is like, he's doing such a good job. He's doing, and I think nobody knows why he's doing a good job, but I think he's just like embraced being an idiot. I'm sort of like proud of him for that because everyone's trying to be, so polished and clean. And he's like not afraid at all of being kind of cringe. And it makes it so like real and approachable and like harmless. And like, it's not cringe, but he's like, there's like these moments where he like makes a bad joke and he just sort of is like, haha. And he doesn't have a cameraman. So it's just him. Yeah. It's like, that's a fully 100% genuine Ryan Trahan moment that he shared with you.
He's like, yeah.
That it's like, I don't want to say it's not good for him, but like, it's not like, oh, Ryan Trahan is like super smart and accomplished. It's like, no, he's like a fun, approachable guy who you don't feel like afraid or intimidated by. And I think that is like enormous for his brand on YouTube. Yeah. Like I think early YouTube for me was like, what are these interesting ideas that I have? Like, 'cause it's kind of a dream, you're like building stuff, but society tells you, oh, you have to make useful stuff.
Yes.
And you have to make useful stuff because if you make useful stuff, it's a waste of time. And if you're wasting time, you're not being, I don't know, whatever, responsible citizen or some bullshit. And so like having any excuse, which is YouTube, to make something that's dumb, and then you're like, oh, cool, like I can maybe pay my rent with this. And then instead of having to like sit there and try to make something that you think people would like, which is like the worst, I hate that so much. Like I hate it. It's like trying to predict what other people want so that they're willing to pay money for it. You're just like making stupid shit that you think is funny.
Yeah.
And people want to watch it. Like it's like the greatest, it's like the greatest job ever, basically.
That same sense of whimsy. I have spent so much of a life in this new quote unquote adult world you described where you feel like everything you do has to have like ROI.
Value. It has to have value.
It needs to make money. There needs to be purpose. And I was like walking around and I saw like a self-etching Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah.
And like 3D printing chocolate. And I think there's a thing where you like throw Risbees with razor blades embedded into the Frisbees.
Yeah, I think it's something like that, yeah.
But like the best way to learn is you're doing something because you actually want to make it.
Yeah.
And then eventually you might want to make other things.
Right.
But it's really hard the way society is structured, the way school is structured. Oh, you start straight to figure out the practical application. And then you have no passion for it because you never got to build the razor blade Frisbee. Yeah. You're like, well, I'm doing this because I just need a fucking job.
Yes. That's like everything funnels you into a job and everyone's too stupid to see that there's like the fourth, like there's another layer above the chessboard that is like make kids self-motivated. Like everybody somehow doesn't understand that kids can be self-motivated and they're just like, fuck you, learn this math. And they're like, why? And then they're like, I don't know, I'm a teacher and I had to do it and then you have to do it. I'm going to give you an F if you don't do it. Like, you're like, okay, this sucks. Like, I don't want to be here.
I don't feel like science fairs are really a thing. Or if they are, every kid is thinking about, thanks to their parents, how do I use this to get into college?
It's a nightmare.
It's so fucked up.
Yeah, it's like actually traumatizing the kids. Like they're sitting there thinking like, I have to learn all these things or I won't be able to like pay my rent. Like it seriously is like, kind of like psychologically, I think, abusive to kids. Yeah.
How did you get out of this mindset?
I think I have always just liked doing stuff. And in high school, I like doing stuff. You have a lot of freedom. I kind of miss those days of just being able to, there's no IR or ROI on your mind. You like try to do something and, you could play Skyrim for an entire summer. Like it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. Like you're a kid, you're free. You don't have to think like an adult because your parents pay your rent for you. And I think there was a transition like after college where Chelsea and I, we moved in our own place, and I was like, oh my God, I think we were paying like $1,000 a month. And I was like, it was like a family friend that had some properties. They like gave us this tiny little studio. And I was like, that's so much money. Like we can't afford the money. Like $1,000 a month is like the an amazing deal.
Yeah, but like when you just graduated, you're like, wait, like now I have to make $1,000 a month.
Exactly. I'm like, that's $12,000 a year. Like holy shit. And it's like 2 people living in like up on a hill in the beach town I grew up in. And it's like, that was a very, very good. That was great.
So when you graduated, you didn't have a job.
I had several jobs. I worked at an engineering firm that I was in the machine shop. I kind of interned there. I was like working part-time. A family friend worked in the machine shop. That's sort of how I got into like a little bit of fabrication stuff, was learning how to weld, learning how to grind, learning how to, just working with heavy machinery, water jet cutting and stuff like that. And then there was an engineering department. So I would go and talk to them and hang out, and then, I get yelled at to come back into the shop. And I actually had my old boss on one of our podcasts. He's great.
Safety third.
Yeah. His name's Luke. It's how I met a bunch of BattleBots people too, because it turns out a bunch of people that were on the original BattleBots show worked there.
Oh, at this shop that you were helping.
Yeah, it's like that. Honestly, is like a huge part of probably everything I've ever done. Is like this completely random lucky connection that put me in the same room as like other hyper creative people that really like doing weird stuff that's kind of stupid. But that was during college, and after college, or like at the end of college, I got a job at a more traditional place, and I'm like, this sucks. Like this really, really sucks.
What were you making? What were you doing?
It's a company called Hydraulics International that makes if you ever see like missile loaders for jets, it's like a forklift for missiles. And so it's sort of a military contract. It's like ground support equipment. And so they were working currently on like the F-35 ammunition loading system. And like I was like kind of helping with that, but the guy that, it was much more scrappy than I thought it would have been. He like wouldn't let me do anything. And I was like, okay, whatever. But there's like there's like fluorescent bulbs and there's no windows to outside. And I'm like, this is like, I hate this. They like didn't have coffee machines or anything. There was like coffee vending machines. I'm like, why? What? Like, Jesus Christ, you guys, like give your engineers coffee. Like come on.
Yeah, you're like loading missiles. Like this is important.
It's like you want to for what, a couple of dollars a day for each person, you can stimulate them to work better. Like, okay.
So how did you go from these situations to, oh, hey, I'm going to go make YouTube videos?
I hated those jobs, and I was like, I really don't want to do this. But I make a joke that maybe I was like, I don't say I was a bad employee, but like I definitely was an employee that was maybe a little ADHD of, this isn't really that interesting. I'm gonna go find something that's interesting, and I like try to make sure that it's useful to what I'm doing, but maybe it's not exactly what they want me to do. And so I realized I need to get a job, and I'm like, well, what if I worked at like a cool company? What if I got like a Google internship or something? So I made a blog, which is the blog that
the one I just told you about, the 2018 project list.
Yep. And I found one of the guys at BattleBots, Charles Kwan, has a really good blog. It's kind of sarcastic, it's funny, it's self-deprecating. He like kind of talks about the stuff that he does. I'm like that's great, because it kind of shows you like how somebody thinks. And I'm like, well, what if I do that? And then that's like a part of my resume. I can document my projects, and it's like, oh, I can also communicate, because engineers are notoriously good at communicating with other humans. And so I'm like, what if I'm able to, write something that's interesting to read and technical and has pictures, and, someone sees it like, oh, like this is great. Like this guy can do stuff, and he can talk about it, and he can, show and take pictures. And I'm like, and then there's like Ben Krasnow, applied science, a YouTuber, who makes these sort of like PhD level videos of just insane shit. Like he's not going for views. He's just
he's just doing because it's cool.
And I'm like, well, what if I like made some videos about it? Because I had made videos in high school and early college. Then it's like even better, because someone will see like he can do engineering, and he can kind of, showcase and demo it, which is,
So this was like a video resume, because you were like, I hate these fucking jobs. I'm not sure. Hey, okay, I just want to do the shit I like to do. Maybe be better at Google. Let me put together examples of my work online. And that's why you're like, oh, let me show it off in videos.
Yeah. And then the sort of silly videos we had made in early high school and college, where we were kind of copying Freddie W. and Corridor Digital, doing special effects and whatnot, that started like bleeding into it. And then we realized John and I were like, what the hell is happening? Like people are watching this shit. Like this is bizarre, because nobody would ever watch. Like we had a couple of viral videos with, maybe 400, 500,000 views, and we were in high school or college, but everything else would be like under 1,000 views. And so doing stuff where you're like consistently getting a couple thousand views, and it was just like, me talking to a camera, and I was like, what is this? Like, it was weird, because we're like, I'm not like not trying, but it kind of felt like people wanted something that was more, put together and more like a skit or special effects, like something that was like a little more like a show.
Yeah.
And then I now like looking back, it makes me realize that people were just interested in this guy that was like doing like building stuff.
Because it's very authentic.
It's super authentic.
What
like,
year is this?
The end of 2016, last half of 2016.
Oh, wow. So this is like almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And if I remember, like your first few videos, it was on lasers.
So I'd like,
yeah,
I'd spent my last, like, I had like 25 or 1,400 bucks in my bank account. You know, Chelsea was paying all the bills at this point. And I was like, I should build a laser cutter and then I can like cut parts for people and make a little bit of money that way. Because I really did not want to get a normal job. I helped my dad. I did a job for my dad and he ended up just like paying for the parts for me, so I got to keep my 1,400 bucks because I bought it from some guy like way south in California, like Ontario, or I don't remember, Hemet, like some absolute shithole of a city. He had like started building a laser cutter and gave up on it, so I bought all the parts from him and then like kind of finished putting it together myself. And then, like that was sort of the start of the YouTube channel. It was like this guy with this like horrifically janky homemade laser cutter that, you know, I had basically bought all the parts from some dude and then finished it and, you know, had to make it work.
If I'm remembering, wasn't the name of that laser like Eye Smelter 9000?
Yeah, Retina Smelter 9000.
That's it, Retina Smelter 9000.
There's a hole. I burned a hole in the wall because I was like messing with it and I had taken the mirrors out that bounced the laser around. I was like, why is nothing happening? And I look over and there's just like a black spot like 20 feet away on the other side of the studio apartment. And Chelsea's like in bed and had no idea that there's like this laser was like flying across the room like 2 feet in front of her. I'm like, oh, fuck.
No, but see, what I fucking love about this, and this is why I think people watch you, the spirit of scientific inquiry is shitty and messy.
Yeah.
When you try and do everything's perfectly, guess what? You lose motivation. Sometimes you don't even want to do it at all. You lose the soul.
It's all shitty. No, everybody hides it.
Like you had this video you put on your second channel recently. You were telling people, come to Open Sauce, embrace being shitty.
Yeah.
You are shitty, accept this. And weirdly, once you accept that you're shitty, now it's like, well, why don't I go build a razor bladed frisbee? Because it's fun.
Exactly. You just do it.
Yeah. Because otherwise, you always like the pressure I had on myself when I was growing up was I was like, you need to be perfect.
Yeah.
And then that's where you completely lose the motivation to do literally anything and actually just make shit.
And I think any parent that imposes that kind of shit on their kid is absolutely insane and unhinged. Like it's giving your kid an environment where they can just do things for fun is so much healthier than any sort of enforcement of like, you need to do good in school, you need to do good here, you need to do good there. It's like you look at like the FRC kids here, the first robotics, like the robots that like throw the frisbee. It's like I don't know how to describe it. It's like obstacle course, but like a challenge, but like battle bots, but not destructive. And they're like so excited. Like their teacher is not there telling them that you have to do this. Like these kids are just like, we're going to build this robot and it's going to be fucking sick. And then it's like dog shit. And they're like, next year we're going to make it a little bit better. There's this conversation, you know, I talked to a couple, this girls team, all girls team. And I'm like, is it better to build your robot a little bit less good and then spend more time practicing, or build your robot really good and spend less time practicing? And they're like, oh, it's better to have a shitty robot and practice with it, which is like kind of the general consensus that I have about like battle bots as well. When I was working on the show is, you know, you don't have to make it good. You got to do something and then you just practice.
When you're playing around with your new laser cutter, like, you know, throwing lasers around while your partner is sleeping and completely blissfully unaware, were you feeling that same spark of happiness and joy that you're seeing and describing in these kids right now at Open Sauce?
100%. Yeah. Because it was just doing shit. Like 3D printing or laser cutting is like this thing where you can make something on a computer and you throw it on there and your parts are made. And before that, it was like, you know, I took woodshop classes in middle school. It was like my favorite class. And, you know, it takes forever. You gotta like cut stuff by hand. It's always kind of shitty. Then you gotta sand. And here's like, oh, I can like just design things on a computer and then make them. And I don't have to sit here and like suffer through manufacturing them. Like it was sort of a very like liberating feeling of like, here's this new tool that I built. There's always this fear, you know, in the back of your mind of like, I gotta like figure out how to pay my bills, but I still hadn't like gotten into that routine yet because Chelsea was working full time and I'm just, you know, at home just trying to, you know, do like a Kickstarter campaign, building this like, you know, camera motion control system, which is like where I learned 90% of all the programming I do. You know, it's like, I never did that. I had some friends who did Kickstarter campaigns and were relatively successful. And it's like, oh, maybe I could do that. It was very childlike where it's like, I still was just doing things.
Yeah.
But there wasn't like that pressure. There wasn't like that gun to my head of like, you have to get, you know, there has to be ROI. There has to be ROI. It was more just like, I probably should like work in that direction.
In this time period, what was just like the most fun thing you made? I know you've said the mechanical TV is one of your favorites.
That is one of my favorites. I think that's one of those intrusive thoughts where you're like, you understand how it works and you're like, wait, I think I could do that. And just even getting something that resembled functioning was so like exciting. even though it didn't work that great, it was like, holy shit, like it's kind of working. Like that's insane. Like I did this in, you know, like a couple of weeks. Like this is so, I don't know, satisfying. And it's like, what do I do now? I don't know, throw it in the trash. Like actually, like what do you do with it?
Do you still have it, the mechanical TV?
No, I think I might have part of it. I probably did throw it away. A lot of, I mean, because the house burned down, right? So, which, you know, is like, it sucks, but also at the same time, like I was able to get rid of the stuff that I didn't actually want, which is like a mechanical TV.
Sorry, Will, you've reached the stage of your career where like, yeah, you know that incredibly traumatic event that I shared with the entire world where my house fucking burned down? So anyways, that's how I got rid of some of the stuff.
Baby.
You know, that mechanical TV, didn't need it.
I miss very little of it, if that makes any sense. It was just things that you had a hard time throwing away. Like the laser, like that sucked. There was like this like skeleton that we called Mr. Bones that would pop it around. Like I looked on eBay, I could never find anything like that.
So Mr. Bones was lost in the fire. This is 2017, right?
This was, I think so, the end of 2017. And then we lived in a motorhome for like 6 months or 8 months. And I think that like YouTube was the only thing that like really allowed me to sort of not be a total mess, because it was just like, oh, gotta do the thing, gotta make videos.
So in this period, and by the way, if you don't know, William and Chelsea's house burned down not due to lasers.
No, it should have been me.
That would have been a wilder story. It was actually just due to an act of God. It's just nature.
Yeah, they ended up, the whole thing got blamed on the power company.
Yeah, but it's just wild. Like, actually nothing to do with William's experiments. Make that very clear. But you mentioned that the thing that kept you sane was like, I have to go make this YouTube video. So we're sort of chronicling the arc of your YouTube career. It feels like in the very beginning, you're just like doing this because like, oh, like it's fun.
Yeah.
And then at some point you're like, oh, like this makes money.
Yeah.
And then after your house burned down, it's like, this is what's keeping you going.
I think like we didn't enable AdSense for a while because we just wanted people to watch the videos. And, you know, I knew it wasn't going to make a lot of money because I think the other account we had, I think we had AdSense on it. And it was just like, literally, you know, it took like years to get the $100 that you could finally pay out. And so we waited till the videos had like 50,000 views each. And then all of a sudden, you know, I'm like, oh, I should turn it on. I think actually Kevin, the backyard scientist, was like posting my videos on Reddit.
Oh, to help get them views.
Yeah. And I hadn't even, you know, I didn't even know him at that point. I mean, I knew who he was, but I didn't
He just
know.
thought your stuff was cool.
Yeah, he just thought it was cool. And then, you know, all of a sudden we did like this, I sent a skateboard to Braille Skate. That was kind of big at the time, and then they like kind of destroyed it in maybe like a slightly disrespectful way. It was like kind of like, okay.
Wait, why was this slightly disrespectful?
They were kind of curt. I sent them, I got a pair of titanium trucks from a company for free, and I sent them to Braille Skate. And I was like, hey, like I'm sending this thing. I want to make like the world's lightest skateboard, and they kind of just like, they like didn't put the trucks on the skateboard. I should have put them on the skateboard, but I didn't because then the box would have been bigger and it would have cost more to ship. So,
hey, like every dollar and penny mattered here.
I mean, I was broke. I didn't have any money. And they like at the end, you know, because it kind of like it fell apart a little bit, but then they started like curb stomping it. It was kind of okay. But it was a little bit like,
you know, the first time I actually discovered you was, I think it was Game Grumps. You sent them like the weirdest, wackiest, worldest controller.
The game controller. You have to scream at it or something. Is that what I did?
Yeah, you made this like really weird ass screen controller. I think like there was an era of YouTube where you were just like making shit for people and like sending it to other YouTubers.
There was a name for it. It was like they didn't ask for it, but I made it and sent it to them anyways.
And then I remember just clicking through. I was like, I remember the second video I watched was a bicycle made of wood. I think.
Oh yeah. That's here somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, so that did not burn down in the fire.
No, that was after. So after the fire, I think the last thing we really did was this like, I made like Christmas wrapping paper that I like scanned my face. I like spun around in a circle while filming my face. And then like took all the center line of pixels out of every frame and like stitched them into like a long thing and then made wrapping paper out of it. That was like the last video we ever filmed in that house. And then it like burned down. I think even in that video too, there's like, I say something, or no, I think it was a different video. I said, it's like the fucking worst thing I could have said. I was like, I should just fucking burn this place down. And then like next week, the house burns down.
I remember you made a video on it where you were like, hey guys, welcome back to Cribs. Like, let me show you around my place.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Like, it was.
when you're like going through this incredibly traumatic event, at what stage, how quick to your brain was like, I got to make a YouTube video on this now?
It's like immediate. I think it was like, you know, it was sort of like the only thing I knew how to do. It was like, well, we should probably, you know, like update people on what's happening. At the time I was probably worried. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make videos and I probably need people to like know what's going on. Then my friend.
At this point, were you making enough from YouTube like to support yourself?
No.
Oh, so this is like house burns down.
Yeah,
you're not even
no,
making
bad.
money,
Yeah,
and you're
bad.
like, okay, I got to show this to people.
Good. It was bad. Yeah, it was bad.
No.
So my friend started a GoFundMe, and people donated like $180,000.
It's incredible.
And I didn't know what to do. I was like, I don't know how this works. I'm not sure what the fuck is. This is an insane amount of money. And I had no idea what to do with it. So
buy a new laser cutter.
But I actually didn't do anything with it.
Oh.
We put it in an account because the YouTube channel was like, it was starting to like grow, especially after that. Like it kind of helped. And so we were able to like pay rent. And we were living in a fucking motorhome, like on my parents' house. Like, wait, I don't, and we were like trying to find other places to rent, but everything was like $2,000 a month. It was twice as expensive. And, people had basically just like donated the same amount of money. And I don't know what to do. Like I was like sort of just like frozen. Like I genuinely did not know what to do. And it felt like, well, I'm not allowed to spend it. And if I do spend it, I have to spend it on like something like, I say good, but like, what do you spend? Like, what do you do? Like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do with this?
It's like all these like strings attached to it in your head.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. Yeah. Cause I'm, just this kid, it's like early 20s. And I had never had any money. I think, I had, a couple $1,000s. Like basically we had renter's insurance that we had gotten like 3 months prior, and they paid us out immediately like $3,200 or something. Okay, cool. Like we can, kind of figure stuff out for the next couple months or weeks or whatever. And then, the lawsuit and the final payout, I think insurance total paid like $30,000, but like I lost fucking everything. Like, it was like, you get a piece of furniture on Craigslist for $40. Like that's years of like Craigslist deals. If you want to replace it all in a month, that's like what, $30,000 worth of furniture. Like, and then everyone in the town like lost furniture. Like it was like the whole fucking Craigslist marketplace, Facebook shit's all fucked up for the next couple of years. Inevitably, like we actually used that for a down payment on a house like several years later.
So you didn't touch it for a long time.
Didn't touch it for like many years. Yeah.
Wait, so then how did you even get back on your feet? Like just making videos?
We just were making videos about stuff using the things that we had and
like around your mobile home.
Yeah. No, seriously. Yeah. Like exactly. And we went to a makerspace, we're just kind of using stuff there and making videos there. But then Michael Reeves had kind of just blown up, and we had been talking, and it's like, hey, do you want to move to California and like do like a kind of YouTube house thing?
Had you met him at this point?
I think he had come out, and we filmed a video. We made this like hot dog condiment dispensing machine where you'd yell into the mic what you wanted, and then the machine would like automatically just spray what condiments you wanted on it. And then Michael made one that was like when he swears, it would shock him.
Oh, yep.
I wrote him like a thing he had to read, and it's like then he's like getting electrocuted every time he says fuck. And so then he goes back to Hawaii, and like I think a couple months later, he's like, hey, do you want to like live in a house? And so then he moves out. He's like 20 years old or something, and we lived in this house in Oxnard on the beach that because we had both started making a tiny bit more money. It was still really expensive, but I had in the back of my mind this GoFundMe. I was like, okay, cool. Like worst case scenario, if I have to use this, I can use it.
Were you making at least like 80,000 on YouTube at this point?
I don't know. Maybe I think I might have been at that point, but I had, I was still paying John, and it's like it was.
It's enough to like, okay, like I can live on this, but it's not like enough to do something like open source years later.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
So
it was worse than like an engineering job at that point. Yeah. But it was more fun, and you didn't have to drive anywhere, which was nice.
When you think about this time period, it's like house burns down, holy fucking shit. Time passes, you move in with Michael, you're living in this house together. You mentioned in the beginning you were making content almost because like, this is cool, I want to see this happen. What was your mindset around YouTube? How did you feel about the content you made then?
I felt like it was the most insane thing that had ever happened to me. Of like, you can literally do the thing that you love to do, which is the kind of creativity that is kind of the idea behind open source, but it's like pointless. So like the useless creativity allows me to have fun and then pay bills.
This is like the best of all worlds.
It's literally the best job ever. Yeah.
What was your favorite thing you made during this time period?
There's a couple that stand out as just being like the pumpkin hovercraft. It's just like so fucking stupid. It's like just half a pumpkin that we put like a blower motor on and 2 big fans, where it's like, what is this?
Yeah.
It's like, why would you ever do that? And like, that's that's why it's funny. It's like, what if you tried to turn a pumpkin into a hovercraft? Like, is it good? No. Is it funny? Yeah. We did like a Thanksgiving sushi conveyor belt style thing with these like line following robots.
I saw that one.
Like that one, honestly, like there's a lot of, I think, really funny videos from then where it's just like the stupidest shit. you could ever think of.
It's like a Renaissance era of stupid, insane things to build.
Yep.
You know, it always reminds me, so before Thomas Edison figured out the right filament for incandescent bulbs, he tried everything. He tried spider webs at one point. Like, that's how desperate this man was.
Anything.
Yeah. And what ended up being working, it was like this like carbon hardened filament. This is before tungsten came along. But I think to what you're doing, and I see the same spirit behind a lot of the inventors that have built the world we live in today. Like, who the fuck would be like, let me try spider web as filament? Unless you're truly desperate and you're really unhinged and you're like, but why the fuck not?
Yeah.
At what point does your channel begin to scale and grow beyond like your control in a way?
I think that there's like a scope creep that I'm very aware of, and I'm not sure like other YouTubers, some are aware of it, but there's a point where you see what other people are doing. You see other people like, oh, their videos are doing like this, they're doing better, they're getting this many views.
So you're starting to care about the algorithm.
And you start to kind of think more about like, well, why does this person's videos do well? And you start trying to figure out, if I want to put work into something, if you have sponsors, you can ask more money from them. If you have, a bigger audience, and you kind of start thinking about it in that perspective, which I think is like generally kind of unhealthy. And it's partly why I think I've had so much fun with the second channel recently, is that I don't give a shit.
You post completely random shit.
It's just random shit.
Check out William Osman. You post a lot and it's completely random.
It's like, I'm like, half the time it's like, you're not building anything, you're not doing, like, there's always like something, like we try to have like we always feel like, what's like a narrative, like kind of generally what's a narrative, and
title
it's like the your shit thing is like, you're just talking about being shit and embracing being shit. And then kind of intercutting with sort of vlog style stuff, like
I love you interspersed you talking about how shitty you are with your live interview with CNN.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, you later confess in that video you were holding in a poop the whole time.
Yeah, I had to shit the whole time. Yeah.
This is the tie between talking about how shitty you are and your live CNN interview. It was you trying to hold in a dump.
Yeah.
It was powerful.
Just tell people how it is,
And you had your kid Potato in there as well.
She's like strapped to me. She probably was shitting too.
Yeah, everyone was shitting. I'm going to be honest with you. I saw that and I laughed because I have a podcast on my channel with Jack Conti, the CEO of Patreon. I was holding in a shit the entire time. It was so uncomfortable because we started the podcast late. Yeah. And by the time he came in right when I was about to go to the bathroom and he's like, let's get started. I was
like, oh, no.
I was like, absolutely, Jack. I'm so great.
I'm ready.
This is the perfect moment. So you look at my expression in that video. There are moments I'm like, it's like, wow, he's listening really intensely. I'm like,
yes.
Like, this is powerful, stomach moving in a way.
That's why I wasn't there. They kept me there for like an hour or two, and I was like, you guys, Jesus Christ.
And then you immediately like went out and filmed this bit where you're like, you're shitty and so am I, and I have a lot of it and I really need to go. The whole focus has shifted more from, hey, I'm William Osman, I make these cool quirky inventions, focus on the inventions, to you. Like, that's why I was so excited to chat with you today. It's like your evolution from hacker to YouTuber to stopping to MrBeast to like you're CEO of probably like the biggest science events company right now, at least in the United States.
It's very, I don't fully think about it, but it's basically my fucking problem, which I guess is kind of the CEO position.
And like, and you're still a YouTuber, like you still make videos.
Where I scream about you're being full of shit while dancing on top of a destroyed actor.
While being also literally full of shit.
While also literally being full of shit,
Would you ever put out videos in your main channel that are not even focused on around invention, more just focused on you?
I have like some ideas. It kind of is like, it's just more storytelling. I feel like that's kind of what that channel, like the direction it will go, is more storytelling. Like I have this thing that I've been talking about for years, and people are like, just post it. Like, there's two things actually. One is an oyster video where Kevin and I became oyster farmers for a day.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason I never published that was it was just like, what's the reason? Like, why?
Again, you're thinking through the story now.
Yeah. And I think that, watching some like Ryan Trahan videos, like I think he's killing it right now, of just, kind of reminds me of my older videos of just like, it gives you like it's like very concise, but like semi-logical explanation. And then you don't really have to think too hard about it, and the video just starts.
He's like, all right, he's just visiting like a bunch of hotels and trying out their experiences. Cool. All right, let's go.
Exactly. And so it's like, I want to eat an oyster, but I'm scared to eat it unless it's fresh. So I'm going to become an oyster farmer for a day to get like the freshest oyster ever.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And it's like, it like just makes enough sense, but doesn't linger long enough where you think too hard about it.
Yeah.
But like I had some whole tangent on it. I might still do it, but like, you know, researching into oysters about them, how like sort of being the foundation of America.
So there's a broader message.
There's like a broader message, but like maybe people they don't really care that much about it. That's more like a fun fact of like, that, you know, like people literally built the foundations of like the first fucking settler houses using oyster shells because it was like such an abundant source of food. Like they would eat it. It was like there were always oysters, and so they didn't starve to death. And then they had all these oyster shells, and then they would, you know, like throw them in the, you know, the foundation pit. Like,
yeah, so you've got a little bit of the broader lore, as well as the, oh well, you know, I'm gonna go do this now.
Exactly. So then it's like, you know, when you think about it like that, it's like, okay, maybe the motivation is like really just not super complicated.
Yeah.
And then that kind of lore comes later in the video.
By the way, we were born in the same year, 1991.
Yeah, let's go.
So we're about the same age. And are you happy?
Yeah.
That was instant.
I mean, I actually, it's like not the first time I've been asked that question. I think the answer is I am, you know, have a lot on my plate, and I generally do what I want, but I have to work very hard. And being able to, you know, hang out with people and do the stuff that makes me happy and that I like doing definitely makes me happy. Like I have a lot to look forward to, and like that makes me happy.
Dude, William, thanks so much for making time. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
This is a great pod.